Peace and blessings to you. I am Melody, and we are here for What's on Melody's Mind today. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you, Lord, for bringing me to where you have brought me. You've brought me out of a terrible situation. Anybody who's seen first week's episode, you will understand that I had a terrible childhood, which led to even worse, terrible, just unfathomable the whole time I was 20 was just wasn't right. Second, I just want to give a big shout out to my husband who goes to work 6 days a week and pays all the bills so I have time to pursue my dreams. No, I am not a gold digger at all, because when I was younger and he was younger, when we were in our 20s, I worked for several years and I paid all the bills, and all he had to do was take care of my children and take care of the house. I cooked. He didn't have to cook because I love to cook. All right, second, we have the book of the week. We're going to have a book of the week every single week. Why? Because education is important, whether it's formal or informal. Knowledge is power, so get some knowledge. The book of the week is The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. It is all about having an attitude of gratitude and learning how to use the law of attraction. I learned how. I've read this book 3 times in the past year and a half because it's wonderful. It truly works. Learn how to use it. You can get it on Amazon right now. It's $9 plus like $3 shipping and handling. It's definitely worth it. It is a 28-day book where you read just one chapter a day and apply what you learn every single day. And it's life-changing. That's why I've read it 3 times, and I will probably read it several times more. I don't know. I'll always use it in my life. For another thing, I want to let y'all know the devil absolutely hates me. Here's my proof. Last week, before I shot my first episode, I did a test shoot on my phone. Why? Because my laptop is a little iffy, and I'm not going to just go buy another laptop because it's not in my budget. Just because I can purchase it doesn't mean it's in my budget, and I like to have money in the bank, so I'm not about to spend all my money in the bank to buy a new laptop. So I did a test video on my phone. It lasted for about 38 minutes, no problems. You see any and all my videos last week, they didn't even last 24 minutes because the devil kept on trying to cut me off. I had my very last, it was like the 4th part of first episode, and it's only less than 2 minutes. And for a day and a half, he had it on private to where I could only see it. And I know that's why, because it's nothing about me but giving God full glory. And my short part of the end of my testimony, telling people how God brought me over. So yeah, if you are pleasing God and bringing people to the kingdom of God and speaking the truth, the devil's going to hate you. And that is a wonderful thing, because if the devil hates you, then that means you're pleasing God. So keep on, devil, hate on me. All right, last week's recap. Now, if you watched last week, you know I had a terrible childhood. Both my parents were crackheads. I was raped a couple times when I was 15. It led to me feeling that God didn't love me, so I ended up being a prostitute for a whole 10-year span. I ended up losing my children. Just had a terrible life. But we know that I eventually went to Christ. Now, I make a joke because I literally went from the hoe track, if you didn't know, to church within a matter of hours. I told God, God, what do I have to do? I feel like I've given I've sold my soul to the devil, and what do I have to do to give it back? He told me, trust and obey. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds great. I got that, trust and obey. Now, I have been selling my body for the past 10 years to provide for myself. What do I do for an income? And he told me just the first thing he told me was to surrender and submit. Yeah, that's what he told me. I was like, I know that's not what he told me. He said surrender and submit. When I asked him, what do I do for my income? That's when he told me to trust and obey. And I was like, okay, no questions asked. God told me trust and obey, so I'm going to trust and obey. So I remember being in the apartment of the guy's house that I was staying at that time, just walking around praying and talking to God and singing any and every gospel song that was placed upon my heart for hours. And God told me to write a letter. To whom? I didn't know who I was writing to. He just told me to write a letter. So I wrote a letter. And then I believe it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, God told me to go for a walk. And I was like, okay, God, you said trust and obey. So I'm just going to trust and obey. I went for a walk and I walked for several hours and I end up walking because God ordered my steps. Yes, he did. I end up walking into a church where there was a lady, a female preacher. I have never in my life seen a female preach. And I've heard about them. I've seen them on TV, but I've never in my life seen a female preach one-on-one until that day. I walk in the church. I sit down. I think it was like in the first or the second row because ain't no shame in my game. And during altar call, God told me to go up there and give them my letter. And I remember one of her deaconesses like, no, you're not supposed to give it to her after church. And I was like, no. God said for me to give it to her right now. The deaconess read the letter, then she gave it to the preacher, and they end up taking up a special offering for me. And that right there to me, that proved to me that God was going to provide for me financially. So I had no doubt in my mind whatsoever that God was going to take care of me. Now, after that, I finally make it back to the apartment in which I'm staying. And God talks to me. He told me that I had walked for the devil for so many years that I had to prove that I was going to follow him and walk for him. What might you be saying? Walk for him. Like you said you turned your life around just in, yeah, I did. But he wanted me to prove my loyalty to him. That's what he told me. So he set me out on what we call this walk of blind faith. Walk of blind faith. Hashtag. You can even check it. Somebody told me in the midst of it. I didn't even know it in the beginning. I got a call from a childhood friend. It's like, you should hashtag it so people know how to find it. So yeah, I hashtagged it. Walk of blind faith. Go ahead and look it up. What I did is I literally lived out of a book bag. I had a book bag. I had my Bible. And I had a sleeping bag and whatever else could fit in my book bag. I started off with a tent, but I gave it away to this old elderly man and his young child I remember they were outside trying to get money. They were trying to get money to make sure they kept the hotel over their head. And I told this man, just in case you don't, I'm going to give you a tent. And as long as you keep a roof over your head, it's all great. The child can just use it as a tent to play in. But just in case, I'm going to make sure that child has a roof over his head. So yeah, I gave up my tent, but I started off in Barstow, California. I literally walked. I walked 30 miles a day, 10 miles an hour. 10 hours a day, 3 miles per hour, at an average of 3 miles per hour. So I walked 30 miles a day. I walked from Barstow down all the way to San Diego, which is almost the very end of this country. Only thing further than San Diego is San Francisco, and it's just a few miles further. So I walked all the way from Barstow, California, because that was my starting point, and I walked to San Francisco, and then I ended up walking all the way to Everest, Washington. You hear that? I walked all the way to Everest, Washington. I may have had 1 or 2 rides in the process. So I'm not going to lie and say I walked the whole entire time. But I did walk the majority of it all on foot. Like I said, 10 hours a day. And no, I didn't have miraculous money where I paid for a hotel every single night. No, I trust in God. And God told me not to ask people for money. And I was like, oh, God, what do I do? Because I literally left with 38 cents in my pocket. I had some granola bars. I had some granola bars and that's it. Granola bars and 38 cents in my pocket. And God just told me to trust and obey. And I was like, okay, Jesus, whatever you say. I don't care how crazy it sounds, because Noah sounded crazy too when you told him to build his ark. So I'm just going to do what you tell me to do. So I remember, because you just can't ignore the girl on the side of the road with the book bag, because I literally looked like I was in the army, but I didn't have on army fatigues. But I'm walking with this 44-pound book bag, 45-pound book bag. How do I know? Because I got on the scale one day without the book bag on, and I got on the scale with the book bag on, and there's 45-pound difference. So yeah, I used to carry 45 pounds on my back every single day. It stopped hurting after 2 weeks. But so people would see me on the roadside, or they see me at the restaurant and such, yeah, and they would ask me what I was doing, and I would tell them, like, I'm going from town to town, city to city, spreading the gospel. God has changed me, and He told me to go spread His word. And there were people who would just give me money. I never asked for a single dollar, but there were just people who would give me money. There were plenty of people who would pay for a shower at the truck stops. And then people would ask me, well, where do you sleep? And I was like, well, sometimes I sleep under the stars. I didn't have a single problem sleeping in my sleeping bag under the stars. It was wonderful. Well, aren't you scared? Absolutely not. Scared of nothing. Why would I be afraid? The whole time I was working with the devil, God kept me safe. I told y'all, several serial killers tried to kill me. God kept me safe. So if the devil didn't take me out when I was working for him, why would I be afraid while I'm working for God? God gave me a hedge of protection around me. As long as you're doing what God wants you to do, you ain't got nothing to worry about. So no, I'd sleep under the stars, and sometimes people would pay for me to have a hotel. Oh yeah, people would give me, they take me to the hotel, buy the hotel, and just be like, all right, you have a blessed life. Thank you guys for that. But sometimes people were like, well, you can just come sleep on my couch. So yeah, I slept on plenty of strangers' couch, and no, I didn't have a problem with that either, because I was definitely prepared for that in my previous life. I ran into and trusted strangers plenty of times. So no, I didn't have a problem with strangers just giving me whatever. So yeah, I made it all the way to Everest, California, and I remember my sister texting me out the blue. This is the first time we talked in about a year and a half, and she told me she needed me to come watch my nephews. And I was like, well, what's going on? And she was like, well, I got promoted at McDonald's, and none of my baby daddies are trustworthy enough, and you're the only person who I can depend on to watch my boys without a problem. So yeah, I ended up hitchhiking from Everest, California to Lorain, Ohio. Of all places, Lorain, Ohio. And in the process, I get to Lorain, Ohio, June 2nd. Wow, why do I remember these dates? But June 2nd, so I get to Lorain, Ohio, and I remember it was the 4th of July, I was out with my eldest nephew in Ohio. Yeah, he is my eldest nephew in Ohio, because I have older nephews out in the West Coast. So, my eldest nephew, he had a severe headache, and there's nothing we could do for the headache, and he had it for days. And my sister took him to the hospital, and they couldn't figure out what's wrong with him. And I end up telling my sister, like, yo, it sounds like he has the same thing that my son had. I don't want to scare you, but you need to tell them to check for brain cancer. So, yeah, my sister's son, my nephew, was diagnosed with, he had brain cancer. I'm not about to try to say that word, and you're going to hear me stumble over the word, because there's just certain words that are hard for me to pronounce. It's not an easy word. Either way, it's brain cancer. So he had brain cancer. God help us all. God help us all. So cancer runs rapidly in my family. My middle son had kidney cancer, and my youngest son had brain cancer, and my nephew had brain cancer. So my faith got a little shaky, because I didn't have anybody holding me accountable to the word of God. All I knew is I stopped whoring and I loved Jesus. So I didn't have a spiritual advisor. So one night, a friend of mine who I've known since I was 10 years old, Yeah, I went to elementary, junior high, and high school with him, and used to carpool with him to high school. Invited me to go out and celebrate for his birthday. And I just remember, yeah, his birthday was my son's is my son's birthday. So I was sad, and I was just like, yeah, I can't stand my children's birthdays because they're not with me, and it makes me extremely sad. So yeah, I wanted to go out. And so it was him, his baby mama, and his friend. Now, his baby mama had the audacity to ask me, what did I do for a living? And I told her I did me for a living. And she rolled her eyes at me. That girl should have never rolled her eyes at me. Because later on that night, when she got mad at her baby daddy for getting carried away gambling at the casino, she walked off and said, forget you, and left him alone with me. And we know Melody was a loosey-goosey. Just because I fell in like with Jesus, because I wasn't completely in love with Jesus, I fell in like with Jesus, doesn't mean I was 100% perfect, because we never are. We have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And even though I was trying to live a righteous life, doesn't mean I was perfect. So to me, as long as I wasn't whoring anymore, I was doing a good deed. So when that man gave me some drugs. Oh yeah, he gave me some drugs. And remember I told you I like drugs. I liked them a lot. He gave me some ecstasy and gave me free marijuana. I love free marijuana. I sure did. And so that night he said some things to me, and we ended up hooking up. And so about a month later, that's when baby mama finally realized she no longer had her baby daddy anymore. And I moved in and she moved out the picture. So that man that I was living with, like I said, he gave me free drugs. It's because he was selling them. He was selling drugs. And I remember one day he was working at his 9-to-5, his cover up. And he was missing drug sales because he was at his 9-to-5. And because I'm such a wonderful woman, I told him, I was like, well, when you're at work, you can just leave me with some drugs and I'll make your sales for you. Like, I don't mind, because I was a hustler from day one. So seriously, there's no reason to miss money while you're out making other money. I can drop you off at work and I'll make your sales for you. No problem. And he was like, bad. So Melody started selling ecstasy. Melody was selling weed, which was nothing because I sold weed plenty of times with plenty of my exes. But yeah, Melody was selling ecstasy and Melody was selling marijuana. And then eventually we started selling cocaine. Ooh, yes, we started selling cocaine. And I don't know why God gave me these eyeballs that he gave me, but I can eyeball anything and tell you exactly how much is in there. My ex, he had a problem with measuring, and he had to do it on a scale, and it just wouldn't. I could do it and be like, no problem. So I'd bag everything up with no problem. He told me it was my job to bag everything up because I didn't need a scale. Every bag was perfect without a scale because that's just how my eyeballs work. So I remember making a joke to him about a week before. It was late August that year. I remember making a joke saying that I have been through just about every traumatizing situation in life, and I can counsel and minister to anybody about anything other than being addicted to drugs. Because at that point in time, I used drugs. I was never addicted to them. Never addicted to them. And then my daddy died. Yes, September 6th, whatever the year that was, 2015, my daddy died. I was 32 years old and devastated. I remember that day, the guy who I was with, I'm not using his name because I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice to people. So I remember that day he went out. Of course, I had some ecstasy. Of course, I had some marijuana. He bought me some Coolers Light because he was trying to suppress my pain. He bought me a Xanny bar because he was trying to suppress my pain. And then he went to work. He left me at home and went to work. He acted like just because he didn't have a good relationship with his dad, that I wasn't supposed to be devastated that my dad died. I remember that day bagging up the cocaine. Yeah, he was still there. It was even before he went to work. I remember before bagging up the cocaine, and somehow we ended up with just a little bit extra. Enough that fit in my pinky nail. See? Pinky nail. Long pinky nails. I don't do drugs anymore, but it fit in my pinky nail. And I remember walking to the bathroom and going... And because I was high off of everything else, I didn't feel it. You can't really know what drugs feel like if you're under the influence of everything else. So I paid it no, never mind. So the next day when he goes to work... I remember I dropped him off at work, or he drove the car. I think he drove the car because I was just like, I'm sitting at home. I ain't doing nothing. My daddy died yesterday. I'm sitting at home. I'm getting high, and that's the end of it. So I remember I rolled my morning blunt, and I was sitting in the living room, and I was getting ready to light it, and I was like, I tried cocaine yesterday. But I don't really know how it felt because I was so bad under the influence of everything else. So I decided to go in the bathroom and get some coke. No, I don't know if it was I don't know. Yeah, I think we kept the cocaine in the bathroom for some reason. I don't know. Drugs, medicine cabinet. Maybe that's why. I don't remember why we thought that way, but we did. So I got just a little bit of cocaine. I walked into the living room. I don't know why I walked into the living room to do the cocaine. Maybe I didn't want to see myself do cocaine. So I walked away from the mirror and I said, uh-oh. I literally said, uh-oh, out loud. Why? Because at that instant, I knew I was going to have a problem with cocaine. Cocaine made me feel like King Kong didn't have anything on me. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee, ooh-wee. Eyes wide open, ooh-wee. Yes, indeedy. So some things went down, and we were told the police were watching us. And the police had been watching me for a while. Yeah, ever since I announced to the world that I was going to walk across the country spreading the gospel, the government had been watching me. So yeah, one girl that I sold some bags to, she's like, yeah, they stopped me in the parking lot. They were asking about you. And we straight up packed up and moved to New York. Not moved, but we left to go to New York, and we were gone for about a week or so. We came back, and eventually we're like, we need income. We need income because he quit his job, and so he's trying to figure out how to make some money. And well, yeah, of course he's selling drugs. He's trying to figure out how to make some more money. We're going to strip clubs, and he's selling drugs at strip clubs, and he's not getting very successful at this. So I don't know. He suggests to me that I start stripping, and because, like I said, I was a wonderful girlfriend, I thought I could handle stripping because it wasn't whoring. As long as I wasn't selling my body, I thought I was okay in the name of the Lord. I knew it wasn't truly approved by God, but at least it wasn't as bad as what I was doing. That was my naive thinking. So I end up stripping. I remember on the west side of Cleveland. No, West 25th. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. And I turned that strip club into my trap house. Because every single night I would go in there with cocaine and I would basically sell out. It was basically to the point where I wasn't in there to strip. Stripping was whatever. I was in there to sell cocaine, and I did it well. I did it well. A few months after us doing this, we were living in East Cleveland, and we had some incidents because Melody is full-blown addicted by now. Melody was selling cocaine so Melody could do cocaine because Melody liked doing cocaine. Yes, indeedy. And I remember him, my ex, the guy that I was dating at the time, saying to me, was cocaine more important than spending time with him? And I told y'all, I have a bad problem with straight up being honest, blatantly honest. And I said, yep. And that man slapped me in my face. He slapped me in my face. And of course I called 911. Because ain't nobody hit me. I don't understand why people think they can hit me and get away with it. I don't care if you hit me. No, you better not hit me. You put your hands on me. There's going to be consequences and repercussions. Do not hit me. Do not hit women, period, point blank. Unless a woman hits you, and even if a woman does hit you, just hold her down. You don't need to hit her. Men are stronger than us. You do not need to hit us. It's just hold us down. Don't shake us. Just hold us down. Don't hold us down this way. Hold us down until we come to our senses. You do not need to put your hands on a woman. So this man had the audacity to hit me, and he went to jail. Now, in that week of him being in jail, I stayed with some people who I thought were my friends. Keyword, I thought were my friends. I end up being drugged. And what do I mean by drugged? I was roofied. I have no recollection of that night. After a couple shots, I have no recollection. And if anybody knows me about my childhood, from being 14 and all the way till my 30s, I drank like a skunk. I mean, I don't know why I said skunk, but I drank like my nickname when I was in high school was Earl, because I drank till I threw up, and then I drank some more. Like, I could hold my liquor, and if I have no recollection of what happened, trust me, I was drugged. I ain't about to get all in the details, because I don't remember them. And I'm not the only one involved, and the other person involved, the other female who was drugged as well, she doesn't like to talk about it. So I'm not going to go into detail out of respect for her. But after that night, of course, my ex, he gets out of jail, and I'm stupid enough to go to him because of what just happened with these people. So I go back to him, and praise God, he did get me clean. He went to work. I stopped stripping at that club. I was just like, I'm done with these clubs. I'm done with these people in this club. I'm outro, yo. And so I ended up staying in the house for 100% 30 days straight. I didn't leave the house at all. I was terrified to leave the house. I couldn't even drink a cup of coffee, because to me, coffee, caffeine, cocaine, they all got me up, and I didn't need to be up at all. It was to the point where in that process, I'd have the shakes. You've heard about people detoxing from drugs. Oh yeah, the shakes were real. I'd be freezing. I'd be burning up. I'd be sick. I'd be throwing up. I was terrible. Yes, cocaine is a hell of a drug, and it's terrible to get it out of your system, because your body does not like you. If you get on it, your body is not going to want to get off of it. No, it is highly addictive. Yes, it is. But I end up getting off of it, and I finally got into a church. Didn't necessarily join the church, but I got into the church. Now, I got into the church, and then me and that dude I was with, the guy I was dating at the time, we ended up getting an apartment on the west side of Cleveland together. And that was all fine and dandy. He went to work every single day, and I stayed at home and played little Mary Housemaker. And me being 100% off of drugs, 100% off of drugs. I wasn't taking caffeine at all, no cocaine. I wasn't smoking weed. I was barely even smoking cigarettes. And if you know anything about when you leave drugs, my mama did it, and so did I. I started eating everything. So I ended up gaining quite a bit of weight. And the man in whom I was living with, my boyfriend at the time, had the audacity to tell me that if I didn't lose my weight and get back to my cocaine weight, yeah, I was skinny because I was on drugs, you dummy. But if I didn't get back to my cocaine weight, he said he was gonna cheat on me. That was the day I remembered that I was Melody Annette Brown Jr. And just because I love God doesn't mean I don't still got it. So, yeah, the very next day, there had been this man who had been trying to get my attention for the past month, because I did start going to work because I wanted more money. I wanted more money than what my boyfriend was making at the time on his own. We were supposed to get married, and I was going to go to work to save up for the honeymoon and the wedding. Funny, I'm shaking my head because we all know that didn't happen. But I went to work the very next day after my boyfriend at the time basically called me fat because I was going through some things. Like, bruh, give me some time. Because eventually I got down to 131 pounds. Like, excuse you, I could do it. You just give me some time. Change is a process. It is not an event. Like, patience. So the very next day, yeah, like I said, I went to work, and this fella who was trying to get my attention for the past month came up to me and asked me, did my homegirl give me his phone number? And I was just like, oh no. He's like, well, I'm gonna have to give it to you on next break. And he did. And I accepted it. I accepted his phone number. And I remember calling him that Thursday. It was the last time me and my ex at the guy I was living with went to premarital counseling, because yeah, I told you we were going to get married, and we were at premarital counseling. And I called the dude and I told him, like, I'm not going to be at work tomorrow. They said they don't need me. He was like, well, I'm gonna come see you. And I was like, okay. And yeah, that same night I came home with my dude, because we went to premarital counseling, and he had the audacity to tell me that he didn't care about how I felt about him and his baby mama, because his baby mama was trying to get him back, and I was trying to tell him that was the situation, and he told me he didn't care about my feelings. And so when he told me he didn't care about my feelings, I said in my head, well, it's a go. It's definitely a go with this new dude, because you don't care. If you don't care about my feelings, there's no future. And I broke up with him right then and there, and he just didn't get the memo. So yeah, the very next day, September 16th, like I said, I don't know why I remember every date. I remember dates. I don't know why. They just stick in my head. But the very next day, old dude calls me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and tells me he's on the way to my house. And I'm like, bet, run it, run it. So he came over, and we had our first rendezvous. And over the next course of couple months, because this is September, so we go September, October, November, December. Yeah, so that's some months right there. We had a secret little love affair going on. And it wasn't that so secret, because I told y'all I have difficulty not telling the truth. I don't like to lie. I really don't like to lie. So there would be times when I'd be in the house with my boyfriend, and he would say stuff to me, and I would tell him, like, no, me and my new boyfriend are looking for an apartment. And he would just look at me and laugh, and I would laugh right back at him, like, no. And he'd be like, oh, you looking good today? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to look good for my new boo. So I used to tell him all the time.